Now, sometimes emancipation feels good like that, you know, sometimes you can shout it out loud, but sometimes you're not so sure, because with the freedom to do what you will comes the responsibility to take sole responsibility for your actions. And that's the core of the next story. So please welcome Ingrid Wiese.
Hello, my name is Ingrid Wiese, and I want to tell you a story about when I was 17 and I decided to run away from home. This isn't the kind of running away from home that I did a lot of when I was 6 years old, where I packed an empty suitcase and I went outside next to the huckleberry bush and I sat there for an hour eating Fig Newtons and I came home. This was like the real kind of running away. This was the green Glad bags that I stuffed with all of my possessions, which was 3 green Glad bags full. Called my friend on the phone and said, will you drive by the house in about an hour? I ran out, I threw my things in the back of her car, got in, and then I watched my mother at the front door, her face, and I knew this was it. I'm not coming back. And what happened for me is that emancipation comes with a price. And the truth is that the first 2 hours of my freedom were fantastic. I was able to go to a party for the first time because my parents didn't allow that. I got to drink alcohol for the first time. I think I might have even made out with a boy. I was pretty wild. And then I had to figure out where I was going to sleep. And that's when the reality started to set in. You know, there's no question about it that there was a certain amount of issues going on between me and my parents at the time. There was definitely, I had 7 brothers and sisters, and I might have been the invisible one. But I knew at that point that my life was really going to be different. And so what happened over the next year was actually a pretty hard story to tell, which is that I had to live as a homeless person for a year. I slept on friends' couches. Sometimes I slept in the bus station. My favorite was to go to airports and act like I was on my way somewhere really important. And I got really lonely. I was horribly lonely. And I discovered that whatever would make me feel different started to become really hard to put down. So if it was food, if it was drinks, if it was company, whatever it was, I couldn't get enough of it. And I was pretty low down in the ground when I finally decided to do something about it. My parents would invite me home occasionally for special events. I won't forget my high school graduation. I think I was the only person that walked up on the podium to the sound of no applause, except for a few of my teachers in the back that were teetering away. I won't soon forget the Thanksgiving I came home and spent the majority of it throwing up next to the car because of the massive hangover I had from the night before. And I won't soon forget the Christmas that I ruined for the family when they finally let me back into the house, and I spent the whole time down at the beach house with friends clearing out my parents' alcohol chest. So these were not the fun memories, but I finally decided, you know, I'm going to do something about it. So the first thing I did was I quit drinking, and that was 16 years ago, March 15th. And the second thing I decided to do was to get a job that had like benefits, like insurance and a desk, and, you know, like people that cared if you wore closed-toed or open-toed shoes to work. I also began to offer my assistance to my family. You know, I had made this decision to get sober, and I started to work these 12 steps. And in there, somewhere in those 12 steps, is that you have to learn how to forgive and how to be forgiven for the things that you've done. So I had to do these really tough things, like call my mom and list off all the horrible things I had done to her without telling her all the horrible things she'd done to me. And then I had to let it go. Or I had to talk to my dad about the tough times we had, and I had to sit across the table from my mean sister, and I had to show up. I had to do things like come to the holidays when I said I would be there, be a support, not a problem, show up in a different way for me. And the tide really started to turn. Like, there was a time when my parents wouldn't leave me alone in the house with my younger brothers and sisters, and would tell me what time I had to leave when I would come for dinner. And it started to change. Like, I would make dinner first of all, and I would do the dishes, which was a big thing. And my mom would say, "Why don't you stick around a little bit?" Or one of my little brothers would get in trouble in school, and my mom would call me and say, you know, "Joe's having some trouble, and what do you think we should do?" And the tide just started to change a little bit. And suddenly my parents, first call they would make for the holidays was to call me up and make sure that I would be there. Well, one, because I was a really good cook and I did the dishes better than anyone else, but they knew that it would be more fun with me there. What a change. They started, my little brothers and sisters who had grown up knowing a different me, really were appreciating the amount of work I was putting into this reunification process, and they were really concerned about if I was going to be there for all the important events in their life. So we started to move closer together. You know, I never moved back in. But when I graduated from college, my parents, and I went to a huge school with like 20,000 people, so if you can imagine, it's not one of those graduations where you hear someone clapping from you from the stands. But my dad, my mom, all of my brothers and sisters, they all came to this like college graduation, and they made the biggest deal out of it because they hadn't been there for high school, and it was like this big moment. It was their way of showing me that they had made some forgiveness as well. So about 2 weeks ago, I had to call my mother to tell her that I would be having a baby. And she said, "Well, Ingrid, you might be the second luckiest person in the world. And hopefully one day your daughter will turn out to be just like you." So.